What's going on, people? My name is Alex Elliott and welcome to the channel. Now, I wanted to talk about this Pro Tools issue because I recently watched an amazing video from Bolo and also from Barry Johns, just really talking about the whole Pro Tools. Is it the industry standard? And this is something that I'd been discussing with my musical peers for so long that it's so great to see people addressing this and shedding light to this conversation on this platform. Now, is Pro Tools the industry standard? Well, to begin this conversation, first and foremost, what is industry standard? Industry standard is at the highest level of this industry. This is what people are using. However, there's a huge problem with this argument because in today's day and age, the incredible music is actually coming from this level. And then the culture, the public says, we love this. This is incredible. And then what's at this level then becomes the top level. And what ends up happening is music is created on certain pieces of software. But then ultimately, if it's then being mixed, it can end up in something like Pro Tools. That's one side of the argument. And then the other side of the argument is when you're traditionally recording live orchestras or film scores or even bands in a live environment, then people will often use Pro Tools. But where does this leave us on the whole industry standard thing? Well, one thing we know as a matter of fact is that Pro Tools is by far not the most popular DAW. Check this out. Now, this particular software is a keyword app, which essentially shows us how often are people actually searching for specific words or specific subjects. Let's check out Pro Tools. Now, for Pro Tools, we can see it's got a search volume of 50,000. Let's check out Ableton. Let's check out Cubase as well. Now, Cubase is also near enough 3 times the amount of Pro Tools. Let's check out Logic. Now, Logic is, I'm not quick enough to do the maths, significantly more popular. This isn't my opinion. Factually speaking, more people are interested and searching things around Logic than they are Pro Tools. Now, how about FL Studio? Boom! It's not even close. Now, disclaimer, I use Ableton. I know how to use Logic, and I also had used Studio One, and I have great songs in all of those projects. I personally started on Fruity Loops, but didn't go back to it because my hybrid workflow of hardware, also being able to track vocals in the same DAW, it's not for me. However, factually speaking, by far, FL Studio is the most popular DAW at this current time that people are searching. What does that mean? It means that a lot of these songs that are ending up being mixed in Pro Tools are also being produced on Logic, being produced on Cubase, being produced on FL Studio, being produced on Studio One. Let's check out Studio One. 80,000. Still more than Pro Tools. So how is it that Pro Tools has this coveted position of being the industry standard when the actual public and the culture aren't even choosing it as their DAW of choice? Now, this comes down to brand reputation. Brand reputation, that's the word I'm looking for. When you're working in that environment, when you're working on a movie score, you have a 60-piece orchestra out in front in the room, ready to record. They're recording the perfect take. In that situation, I do not want to be using Ableton. I do not want to be using Studio One. Hell, do not want to be using Logic because of stability issues. In that situation, the integration between Pro Tools hardware and Pro Tools software has such a reputation, such a long lineage of professional quality that in those environments, people are going to opt for that every single time. Now, that's not to say that Pro Tools won't have its issues here and there, but they've built that reputation of being reliable. However, I've been working in and out of major professional studios for the last, oh God, am I that old? 15 years at least. But every time I've been to that studio, they've had Pro Tools as their main DAW. However, there's one massive issue. They've had Pro Tools HD. Now, what this means is these major studios are the most inconvenient studios for me to integrate into if I bring my laptop, because I'm producing. So I've got all my sounds, all my kits, everything set up the way I want it on my laptop. I don't want to be working off of your dedicated computer system. And that dedicated computer system, often case, is the only system that's able to access the entire studio. And what ends up happening is they bring this Focus, right, out of the corner of the room. Or the UAD Apollo is a really, really popular one, and we're going to talk about them again in a minute. And they basically take two jack leads out and put it into a patch bay, and then put my laptop into the patch bay. They create a vocal chain, and then they take the output of the patch bay and they plug it into the audio interface. So this studio with this incredible environment, this incredible monitoring system, this incredible vocal chain, these incredible ADDA converters most of the time, most of that gets bypassed, and I'm going through a Focusrite, or I'm going for a UAD Apollo. And in my instance, I want to be able to recall that vocal chain. So I'll often avoid using the hardware because I'll just use the Apollo console and know wherever I go, that vocal chain is going to follow me. When it comes to mixing that vocal, I'm not going to have a problem with inconsistencies. So even though major studios are using Pro Tools as the standard, I actually think it would be better if they all switched to UAD and Luna, if I'm being completely honest. Now, hear me out. This is an unsponsored video, but the reason why I say that is UAD is a much easier system to turn up with your laptop and plug into and get going. You download the UAD console app, you download the UAD software, you install it, and you pretty much just get working, and you have access to that audio interface. It appears as normal on your system, and you can access everything in that studio if it's set up in that way. However, with Pro Tools, it's probably a lot better now, but traditionally it was just really difficult to integrate an external laptop with an external DAW into that system. Now, this is a really, really interesting point. If most people are using the home studio, and actually they only go to the major studio once they get those budgets. But if most people are using Fruity Loops, and if most people are using Cubase, and most people are using Ableton, and all of these other DAWs, at least a minimum of 3 times than Pro Tools, and major studios are also on the decline, and home studios are also on the rise, then where does that leave Pro Tools as the industry standard? At which point do we have to change what the standard of the industry is to match the culture? Because I'm just a man of facts. I don't use FL Studio, but according to the numbers, I say this, I have to be honest, the facts are showing us that 1 million versus the nearest one being Logic, 380,000. 1 million search volume for FL Studio. So is FL Studio actually becoming the industry standard? If home studios are becoming the industry standard, and most new people who are getting into music are learning FL Studio, then FL Studio and Logic, which was the second most popular, generally, they are more the industry standard now in this day and age, this social media, this online work from home day and age. They are more the industry standard than Pro Tools. Let me know in the comments down below. Now, to give my actual opinion on this subject, I think that there's so many different sections within this industry, and I think within those sections, there's a standard. If you're making trap music or hip hop music, you're going to say FL Studio is a standard, hands down. But if you're making maybe more electronic dance music, you might say Ableton, hands down, is a standard. If you're doing film and TV on the composition side, I don't think you're going to go anywhere near FL Studio. I don't think you're going to go anywhere near something like Ableton. You're probably going to be in Logic, Innuendo, Cubase. But There's a standard for different areas. If you're in the live world, then Ableton is unquestionably the standard for live performance. And then second to that, some people use Pro Tools as well. But ultimately, it's too broad a question. Industry standard. What industry? Which subsection of the industry? If you're doing film scores, Pro Tools is probably the standard. If you're doing large-scale recording projects, Pro Tools is probably the standard. So that's my opinion on the matter. But let there be war in the comments sections. I'm looking forward to reading all of these.